major federal court ruling out today will have huge ramifications for the New York Police Department's controversial stop and frisk policy. Federal Judge Sharia Shindlin handed down a 195-page decision that says New York's finest have violated the constitutional rights of minorities for years. Here's part of that ruling. The city acted with deliberate indifference toward the NYPD's practice of making unconstitutional stops and conducting unconstitutional frisks. Even if the city had not been deliberately indifferent, the NYPD's unconstitutional practices were sufficiently widespread as to have the force of law. In addition, the city adopted a policy of indirect racial profiling by targeting racially defined groups for stops based on local crime suspect data. But while this ruling is a major victory for opponents of the stop and frisk law, it does, however, fall short of repealing it altogether. To talk more in depth about what this ruling actually means, I'm joined now by Carl Dix. He's the co-founder of the Stop and Frisk movement. Hi there, Carl. Thank you so much for joining me. So you are one of the people that thinks that this ruling falls short. Why is that?
Yeah, it doesn't go far enough because what stop and frisk is it's a policy of treating Black and Latinos, especially youth, as criminals, guilty until proven innocent, if they can survive to prove their innocence. And that's not just me trying to hype this up. Ramarley Graham was a stop and frisk that went fatal. He's dead and the cop is now free to walk the streets. So that's why this policy was no good, it was illegitimate, and it needed to be gotten rid of. This ruling is not any reason for us to stop our resistance, not only to stop and frisk, but to mass incarceration overall and all of its consequences, including the criminalization of Black and Latino youth.
Now, Carl, part of this ruling requires a monitor to oversee the stop and frisk actions undertaken by the NYPD. Already, former Assistant District Attorney and NYC Lead Attorney Peter Zimroth has been selected for the job. Do you think that this monitor position will have an effective check and balance kind of effect on the discrimination that the judge alleges?
Well, I think that if the monitor is acting under the direction of the Justice Department, then I have a problem with it, because the Justice Department has presided over racial profiling, law enforcement targeting Black and Latino communities across the country. And what we're going to have here is maybe a rounding of the edges of a racist, illegitimate policy. That's why I said last year, when Cornel West and I issued the call to stop and frisk and founded the Stop Mass Incarceration Network, that reforms and tweaks won't cut it. Stop and frisk has got to go.
Now, realistically, how does this ruling change the lives of the people who have already been stopped and frisked, of which there are approximately 5 million in New York City alone?
Well, from one end, it doesn't change what has already been done to people. What it holds out is the potential promise that that practice will no longer be allowed to target Blacks and Latinos. But we just have to remember that stop and frisk itself was a reform of previous abusive NYPD practices by the Giuliani-era street crimes unit. So what we got was a policy that spread out the targeting of Blacks and Latinos from elite units to the entire NYPD. That's why I am suspicious of an approach that says we're going to reform stop and frisk. Because if you allow the system that's been responsible for the abuse to reform itself, and I'm not talking about New York, because New York is not the only place that racial profiling goes down. If this system is allowed to reform itself, then expect those reforms to bring you the problems in another way. Similar to the way that Jim Crow segregation was gotten rid of in part by a powerful movement from among Black people and others. But today, 50 years later, we're facing mass incarceration with most of the people incarcerated Black and Latino. We're facing torture in prisons and more.
So let me ask you this. Does this lawsuit have national implications for the practice of stop and frisk? And additionally, does it go beyond this lawsuit with the ruling of being unconstitutional, several of these stops? Does it open the way for more lawsuits?
It possibly opens the way for more lawsuits, but let's just be clear what the judge did. The judge did not rule that stop and frisk was unconstitutional. The judge ruled that the NYPD's application of it was unconstitutional, and the monitor is going to oversee reforming the stop and frisk policy. So the policy is allowed to stay into effect, and they're going to hone it and round off some of the edges. My thing is that this came down to racial profiling, illegitimately targeting blacks and Latinos, and it is a policy that was no good and needs to be stopped. And it represents a system that has historically and current day targeted blacks, Latinos, and other oppressed people. And the system itself has got to go.
Finally, what is your response to the people who say that the huge racial disparities in the stop and frisk program are a reflection of the people who actually commit the crimes in New York City?
Well, first off, this is a criminal system. Let's look at what happened with the big recession and what the people on Wall Street did that violated numerous laws. None of those people got targeted by law enforcement. They are all walking around free today, with most of the wealth that they stole. So don't tell me about it's blacks and Latinos who commit the crime. It is blacks and Latinos who have been criminalized by this system. And that's a part of why I say that we have to get rid of this system through revolution and nothing less.
Carl Dix, co-founder of the Stop, Stop, and Frisk movement, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm really geeked about what just happened right there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome once again to King JB Uncensored. I'm your host, motherfucking King JB. Now, what we're going to talk about today is what you just saw. You know what I'm saying? In New York, it's a big thing up there with stop and frisk. And I think a lot of cops are doing this all over the country. But this particular was disgusting because it literally targeted minorities. You know, all minorities. But in this case, you know, we all know it specifically targeted blacks. You know what I'm saying? That's one problem we have in this country today. It's like black people are automatically considered criminals. White people are automatically considered alright. Unless they look like me, and then you all of a sudden ain't alright with me. But anyway, that ain't the point. You know, this is the type of racism that goes on all the time. And this is why motherfuckers think that we're all like that. And I have a problem with it, you know. Listen, I understand wanting to make our country safe. However, we have a constitution that's set in place for a fucking reason. And I've been already tired of Barack Obama and the previous administration, George Bush, with this Patriot Act, taking all of our freedoms away. That's another thing. I don't understand the liberals. I don't understand why anybody could be happy with Barack Obama when he continues to do even worse than what George Bush's punk ass did. With all this shit, taking away every right we have. I don't really get it. I don't understand it. But it is what it is. At the end of the day, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. But, you know, the bottom line, stopping and frisking, the whole concept of that, it violates our Fourth Amendment, period. We're supposed to be, in case you don't know what the Fourth Amendment is, we're supposed to be safe in our papers and basically our privacy. So the truth of this is that that amendment has been breached. And it's been breached in a lot of ways, and a lot of y'all don't even see it. A lot of y'all are completely blind to the reality of how much our constitutional rights are getting shit on right in front of us each and every day. And this is a perfect example of how they're being shit on each and every day. But kudos to the courts. Kudos for the motherfuckers that saw it. Kudos to the motherfuckers that wanted to change it. And kudos to the motherfuckers that did change it. So big ups to them. I'm happy to see it. Finally something goes the way of the Constitution. And that, my friends, is a big deal. Now we got a few more things we got to worry about. A few more things we got to take care of. But at the end of the day, I'm glad they saw through this. I'm glad they fixed it. And I'm most happy for all black people and other minorities. Because they don't... I can't imagine how tired they are of dealing with this type of shit. You know what I mean? I really can't. I can't imagine what it feels like to be considered a criminal everywhere I go. Oh yeah, I can. But at the same time, that's really not what's important. What's important is this shit has got changed. I'm happy about it, and hopefully we won't see any more states pop up and do the stop and frisk shit. But anyway, I just wanted to show y'all the news real quick, show y'all what was going on, in case you haven't already seen it. I'm a little late on it. But anyway, there you go. King JB, uncensored as usual, at official King JB. I'm out.